All right. This time, we'll take nominations for a temporary chair, just for the purpose of chairing this meeting.
I'll make the motion that we made for Jim, the temporary chair.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other nominations? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. C.
Thanks.
got
Is the one there?
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I thought my time in the barrel was over, but I guess not. Why don't we all stand? And I'm going to ask Gene Davis, if he would, to open us with prayer, then we'll have the pledge.
Let us pray. Dear Lord Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for everything that you do for us. And dear Lord, just continue to guide and bless this board, dear Lord, and help us to make decisions that will be beneficial to Hardy County in everything that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
There's a flag in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first on the agenda is the approval of the agenda before we get to the agenda. So we need, if everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. Good morning, ma'am. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve the agenda. Here a second.
Second.
I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Chair, we're asking that you remove the item down that's marked Rules of Procedure. We'll bring it back next month. Honestly, I just got around to reviewing it yesterday. I've been working on that continuum thing, and I had comments and things that need to be circulated before, well in advance of the meeting. So please, if you would, modify the motion to remove the Rules of Procedure adoption from the agenda today.
Is that all right with your motion? Your second? Okay, any other questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, we'll move down to the approval of the minutes. I think everybody should have received a copy of their minutes prior to today. I will entertain a motion on the prior minutes approval. Or questions? We can have questions after a motion, I guess.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. I'll turn it over to our director and our attorney.
Good morning. We have bantered back and forth between Ken and myself and between others representing Continuum. And yesterday we sent you a later version of the restated agreement. I want to make it clear that there is no urgency of this board to approve this agreement today. But my preference would be for us to take the time and go through this agreement line by line, item by item, or at least page by page at the preference of the board. So at this time, I'm going to ask the chairman to ask you exactly what procedure you'd like to go through this agreement, and that is the procedure we'll follow.
I would think we would want to go through it in the big picture, page by page, but if there's line items, everyone should have had a chance to read it. And if not, that's what we're going to do here today. I would suspect we would not have a vote on this today. This would be at our next meeting so that everybody has a chance to ingest this and fully understand it. Tried to tighten up. My understanding is a lot of the issues especially some of the issues that the Auditor General had brought to our attention in the last contract. We think we've got all those tightened down. So what is the pleasure of this board? Do you want to go line by line or page by page, or what would you like to do?
Page by page is fine with me.
All right, we can do a page by page, and as we get through those pages, as y'all go through it, if there's things that jump out at you and slap you, or you have questions about, that's what we're here today to do, to find out and ask and determine and iron out and try to make this thing as palatable as possible.
But Ken, step up to the mic.
Brought my sheet music with me.
I will start by saying that the first couple of pages are the whereases that tie this restatement agreement to previous agreements that have been approved by the board. I don't think there's anything particularly controversial in the whereases, but if there's questions, if you have concerns about them, we can address those at this time. That would be on pages 1 and 2.
Let me back up even more than that, Bill. The reason we chose for the board, the reason we chose to call this a restated grant award agreement is that the intent flowing through this whole thing is that Continuum remains on the hook for the total sum of the LifeSync original award, any award that's been made to Continuum to date under the modification agreements and the assignment agreements, and so bringing all of that into one document, restating the whole thing, but preserving the total grant obligation. You want to call it the repayment obligation in the event they flip the company or sell the company or whatever. It's a total running obligation back to day one. So that if any of you are wondering why we chose to call it what we did. The whereas clauses are, like Bill just mentioned, they're kind of really more historical, but they do provide for the benefit of anyone reading who hasn't lived through this experience, kind of a background on what went down and when it went down and how we got to where we are. The agreement really, for practical purposes, starts on page 3 with, paragraph 1, which basically goes back and incorporates all the recitals which the recitals are the whereas clauses. It identifies the parties, it identifies the grant administrator for both the IDA and the grantee. Paragraph 4, we assigned a term to the agreement, which is basically 10 years with an option for Continuum to exercise to extend it for an additional 5 years.
Ken, I'd like to go back to the whereases a little bit.
Okay.
All right, from a legal standpoint, you feel
Pick up your mic.
from a legal standpoint, you feel very comfortable with our position, using all the whereases and using this contract to tie in with the old contract.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's always an issue of intent. Like when a court or anyone else is looking at a contract, they try, what was the intent of the parties with this thing? And at each point that Continuum, originally LifeSync and then Continuum was advanced money, we've always kept the first obligation alive, so to speak, and that felt like we had a running tally the whole time, and we think this document just makes it abundantly clear that that's the case.
Okay. You feel comfortable with that?
I do.
That's all I need.
I do.
I'm looking for the university, and which one is the university portion of the grant? Tech River University.
We have deleted that portion at this stage.
Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge that the whereas is help upon audit. When you sit down with the auditors, there is clarity, it's not some other person's word and what they think happened this delineates exactly what has happened, and when you look at it with the other clauses that have occurred with Continuum and LifeSync, they read with some sequence and continuity.
If you may ask yourself, why a 10-year, why a 10-year term on the agreement, paragraph 4, it ties back to the language of 7.1, which is the, if you want to think, we've called it remuneration. It is really nothing more than a repayment obligation in the event they sell the company, flip the company, move the jobs elsewhere. There's a provision in 7.1 that requires that they repay the grant amounts, the total, from day one. And that is a 10-year period over which the way that calculation is done, so we made the term of this agreement just match that. So that's why paragraph 4 has a 10-year provision in it.
Ken, if that's the case, why the promissory note?
The note, Donald ties Travis personally. This agreement is with Continuum. And the reason that note was always originally even with LifeSync was to get the individual's name signed on the dotted line rather than just the company.
Can I ask you a question about the promissory note right
Sure.
now? Does it say in here that if Bill feels that he acted in good faith, but it fails, he don't have to pay it back?
Donald, what we're saying is if they fail to substantially perform with this agreement, to act in good faith or use funds in a manner inconsistent with the purposes of the agreement, then there's a responsibility to repay.
But if it's determined by somebody that he acted in good faith through the whole process, then he's forgiven of the promissory note.
There were never any guarantees that the project would work.
That's not what I'm asking you. But if you determine.
It's not Bill and it's not me, it's this board.
So this board has to determine that he acted in good faith and then dismiss and just let him walk.
It's not a good faith requirement alone, Donald. It is, the way we have this draft, and this is draft, this whole thing's a draft.
I understand.
So whatever the board would like to direct, we can take up for discussion. But the way it reads, it says, in the event they fail to substantially perform or fail to act in good faith,
I understand.
that's an or,
I understand.
doesn't say and.
That's right, I understand.
Or uses funds in a manner inconsistent with the purpose of the agreement. So that's a take off, close the doors, we can't find Continuum anywhere. Demand is
Right,
made on
right.
the note.
But if it's decided that he did act in good faith, then the debt's forgiven.
That's not what it says.
Okay, all right. I hope
I
you
mean,
got that recorded.
I have modified the language somewhat from the first one too, but that's,
Okay,
go back and compare it to the original one that was on the LifeSync. It
Okay.
had stuff in it that act of God language and stuff like that I think always applies contractually. I mean,
all right, I'm good.
but from day one, Donald, there was never a guarantee though that they would succeed.
I understand,
They
but
weren't-
if I go down and buy a car from Gene Davis and I quit paying my payments, and Gene comes to get my car, I say, okay, I acted in good faith, so you need to forgive me of this.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay, I'm just curious. I just kind of, I caught that and, anyway, all right.
Okay, paragraph 5, grantee description, just has the description, Continuum Labs. Paragraph 6 is a project description. That's just for you to read. I don't know that it really,
Is there a reason why it's a Nevada corporation?
that's where they formed it.
But what's the reason for it? Is their laws less strict?
Donald, Delaware used to be, back in the 80s and 90s, Delaware was a state in which a lot of companies decided to incorporate because their corporate laws, for tax issues primarily were far more favorable than other states. And so if you ever have driven through the state of Delaware, you will see along the main drag through Delaware, there are corporate headquarters for major corporate on both sides of the road for 3 or 4 miles, just all over the place. Other states caught on. I think Nevada was one of them and adopted similar corporate codes. It's primarily a tax issue that is, creates advantages, I think, to incorporating in Delaware, Nevada, and maybe other states by now.
I wonder if I could ask a question. Do y'all have any copies of the one he's working off of?
It was emailed to you yesterday.
It was emailed out yesterday, Frank.
Yeah, yesterday, yeah. Real good. From Hardy County. I just wondered if you had a copy, I'd like to have one. I can get one when I get home.
Paragraph 7 is really the meat of this thing, where the deliverables appear. 7A, Jim, I'm gonna go through this particular paragraph line by line, because this is where the meat lies. Basically saying October 1st of this year, they're gonna start paying rent at $1,000 a month. And that'll carry on through June 30th of next year, 2015. Before, sometime before July 1st of 2015, there will be some sort of negotiation between Bill and Continuum for what the long-term rental agreement is going to be, and that will be brought and presented to this board for approval. There will be a formal lease agreement and that sort of thing for approval. So, but it just talks about they're going to mutually agree on a commercially reasonable rental terms for July, starting July 1st of 2015. Letter C, 7C.
I got a question on that rent. Isn't that a little cheap? And could you hand me the microphone, please? $1,000 a month for the whole building over there at Tech Center? And also...
It's not the whole building.
Oh, well, I need to have that explained.
It's for the space that they use currently. But in answer to your question, I think it is still cheap. If you actually sat down and did the math, which I understand Bill did, took the total monthly expense for the thing and busted it back out and on a pro rata basis for the number of square feet they use versus the square feet of the building and do it, you come up with something that's more than $1,000 a month.
But does the calculation take in how much money they make from selling or getting people to pay for their product?
No, it didn't. It was an agreed upon figure. And that's something this board can deal with and direct if you feel otherwise. That's the point of going through this thing. It was never the intent, as Christie set out in the email in capital letters, that you were going to be asked to vote on this thing today. It is to go through it, to give you the time. Donald, you've always wanted a week, and that's reasonable. We're going to give you more than a week. That's the idea by doing this. We don't even have the Exhibit A yet, which is the agreed upon procedures, Donald, that I told you last meeting we would have for you to look at before you were asked to adopt this thing. We don't even have that yet because Clifton Larson Allen is doing that. So we were expecting it late yesterday, didn't get it. So this is for discussion. Any of these points are subject, this whole thing is subject to the board telling Bill, myself, go back and do something different. That's the point of going through this thing.
Which one you on?
I am now on C, 7.0C.
Okay.
36 FTE positions located in Hardee County no later than December 31st of 2014.
The last contract, there was promises in there about the number of employees that never were fulfilled. That ever who was looking over, making sure that it was done, failed. So you're telling me now this one's gonna not fail as far as the number by a certain date and all that kind of stuff? It was overlooked last time. It never was. Nobody enforced it.
It wasn't overlooked. It wasn't overlooked. You guys discussed it, I think, just about every meeting when Travis came and made the presentation as to how many jobs were out there. It was, overlooked is not the right word, Donald.
Well,
Whether or not the board chose to act on it is a different question. But I don't think, in fact, I think Casey had prepared a report on, specifically on the deliverables and presented it and told you how many jobs were there in relation to the number of jobs that were committed to. But have we made a real effort to do a better job on deliverables with this agreement? Yeah, absolutely. We're taking a lot longer to do it, and we're trying to give you guys the benefit of time to digest it, ingest it, see what you think. I don't know what to say, Donald.
Well,
other
you
than
said Casey. I thought Bill was the administrator.
Casey made the report, if I remember right.
She did make the report, but this says that Bill's the administrator to make sure these things are fulfilled.
That is what it says. He's the administrator. And I don't believe it's the intent. I don't think Casey's going to be doing this into the future. I think this is,
There is one difference that probably should be noted at this point, where the previous continuum document was a draw schedule that was approved in advance by the board with monthly reports. This is certification that they did in fact approve them, or they did in fact produce the jobs and provide the extraneous contributions before you get a recommendation or request or a suggestion from me to make your additional contribution. That is a radical change in the way we're doing business henceforth.
yeah, recall that the overall plan under this document is that there's going to be agreed upon procedures done by Clifton Larson Allen to prove up the fact that there are at least 36 FTEs in Hardee County. And it's only that is certified by Clifton Larson Allen that you're committing, and that's one part of it. Once they have demonstrated that, and they have demonstrated on the first distribution, $3 million of outside money to the satisfaction of Clifton Larson Allen.
I thought it was 5.
5 total.
Read the first time.
3 in 1 and 2 in 1.
All right, when you say Hardee County jobs, are you saying jobs in Hardee County
Yes.
or Hardee County citizens?
Saying jobs in Hardee County. We're not saying Hardee County.
So they can
citizens.
come from Pasco or Polk or Manatee or,
That's correct.
well, that's not what we're here for.
It's up to the board. I mean, I don't know, Donald, when you get, if you have massive success, if a company, if Boeing were to come here, so we're opening a plant, we're gonna have 1,200 jobs. Good luck finding 1,200 people in Hardee County.
Ken, we're talking about 36 jobs.
We don't know what
We're
we're
talking about
No,
economic
we're hoping at
development.
least 36 jobs. You would hope that there's more than that. And
Well, let's say the first 36 ought to be Hardee County residents.
Do you think they're gonna be qualified by then?
For $30,000 or $35,000 a year, yes.
We have a lot of school teachers that drive from out of county. I mean, it's just, we don't have,
Let me
It's
tell
for
you a story.
development.
Let me tell you a story. Channel 13 last week had a story about all the counties in its viewing area. Every county had growth and projected growth, but 2, Citrus and Hardee County. And there's no jobs available is because the people are leaving. So, you know, we're spending tons and tons of money, but not creating very many jobs. So the people here need the jobs.
They advertise these jobs through the local workforce, which opens it up to any Hardee County resident that has the qualifications.
I know that.
So, I mean, that's what more can they do? If people here don't apply or don't feel qualified, we can't make them.
Well, how do you know they're not going to?
Well, then they'll
They're
fill them.
gonna be there for them to do it. They're gonna be there. All they're gonna do is go to the local workforce and apply.
And it's Hardy
They're
County
gonna
citizens'
post 'em. They're
choice.
gonna be-
It's their choice.
They'll see it before anybody
Okay.
else.
I don't argue with these women, let's move on.
Let me piggyback on this Boeing comment that was made.
They know exactly
If
what I'm talking
Boeing
about.
came into Hardy
Just make an
County,
excuse for
that
Boeing.
would make lots of jobs for Hardy County because it would bring in builders
I beg to
to
differ.
build up.
So noted.
Excuse me. It'll bring in builders to build houses, because if Boeing comes, they're gonna bring 10,000 people to work in that plant, which is gonna make Hardy County grow, and that makes ancillary jobs for Hardy County. And I'd love to have Boeing come in here, just like Amazon in Polk County. They brought jobs with them, and you're gonna expand your opportunities for people that live in Hardy County.
Right, but we don't have a workforce capable of satisfying the need for the construction. You're gonna have, it's gonna be, if Boeing were to do that, you're gonna have a flood of outside people coming in here to fill the jobs,
Well, sure
because
you
we
are.
don't have the workforce.
Well, sure, something like that.
It's, I mean, I'm open to the idea of adding a sentence, I don't know if Continuum is, it says priority in consideration will be given to Hardy County citizens in the hiring
Yeah,
process,
you
assuming
probably-
they're qualified.
You probably remember a few years ago, when I tried to get this board to say any business that comes in Hardy County, that they should give the opportunity to the Hardy County people if qualified. And if they can't find qualified people, then certainly you go out of the county to find qualified people. And this board voted down for the companies to at least try to hire Hardy County people. And that's what scares me. It wasn't this group of people, it was a different group of people as a board, but they voted down to ask these companies to try to hire qualified Hardy County people.
I don't recall that.
Well, I do.
I don't believe, and I don't want to speak for them, so if anyone disagrees, please speak up, but I don't believe this board, anybody on it would object to a provision that
It
says
wasn't this, it wasn't
Priority.
these actual people on the board.
priority will be given
So
to
maybe
Hardy
why?
County job applicants to the extent they're qualified. You know, I mean, I think it still ends up being discretionary with Continuum because they're making the determination whether or not a particular individual is qualified.
I understand
You
that.
know, so it's still somewhat subjective, but we can stick a provision in that certainly requires that.
That's my goal, is to try to get jobs for Hardy County people. And apparently there's other people that's not their goal.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Donald, you know, you and I both sit on the Heartland Work or
Yes.
Career Source Florida
Right.
board. I've kind of got another, I wouldn't call it a different view, but maybe a complimentary view of that. A job in Hardy County filled by a Highlands County resident. I have people that work for me that live in Highlands County. I have people that work for me that live in DeSoto County. But if there's an X number of jobs in the Tri-County area, okay? If there's someone from Highlands County that's driving to Hardy County to work, then there's a job that they're not taking in Highlands County. And possibly there's someone from Hardy County driving to Highlands County, because that happens every day. People drive from here to Arcadia, vice versa. People drive from here to Highlands, and vice versa every day. There's a lot of bleed over, and I think while it's our job, or this board's job, is Hardy County, you kind of got to be a little flexible with that, at least in my eyes. I do have one question, and I'm a little, I don't know how to, maybe I'll ask a question, we'll see where it goes. How do you determine Hardy County job? What's the best way to do that? I have an example. I have a part-time employee that lives in Hendry County. I don't even know if this person's ever been to Hardy County, but their check is written in my office in Zolfa and sent to them every couple of weeks. they show up on our UTC6 form, unemployment form. How do you determine, based on, what's the best way to determine what is a Hardy County job? I mean, if they're writing checks here, they could be sending them, and you have to realize that over the course of the last 3 years, Continuum has had to hire people with expertise that was not here. So they have been sending checks from wherever they've been writing them, sending checks to other parts of the country, maybe other parts of the world. I do not know where these people have been to develop, because they need to pay for their expertise. If Continuum locates their payroll office in Hardy County and starts writing checks in Hardy County on a local bank or whatever bank, and it gets reported on their UCT6, is that a Hardy County job? How do you? I don't know what the best way to do that is.
I understand their issue, and certain types of jobs you can work from a computer from anywhere with internet access. Bill, our discussions have been to date, and we may actually define it, Mike. I mean, we may take your comment and say, and run with it and try to assign a definition, but the intent has been the person driving up to the Tech River building and parking their car, and physically walking in the door and staying there for a day. That is,
And I would agree with that.
That's the intent.
Needs to be a way to quantify
because
that.
of the spinoff, what kind of ties into your comment that tied into Donald's comment was the person from out of county that comes to Hardee to work, maybe they live in Highlands, drive to Hardee, is gonna potentially whip through Burger King here to grab breakfast, or they're gonna go to Java for lunch, or they're gonna go to Giovanni's for lunch, or whatever. They're spending money throughout the course of the day. They may run to Walmart during their lunch break because they don't wanna go after work. They're spending money in the community because they're really more captive than our in-county residents who can run home for lunch. And
they might end up building a home in Hardee County.
yeah, there are multipliers that happen, Donald. We all, I think, share the intent that the jobs be first offered to Hardee County residents. But I don't think you can completely discount the fact that there is some sort of multiplier to a Highlands County person, resident who works here, or vice versa. I mean, it's there. But answer Mike's question, maybe we add something in there, some sort of definitional attempt to define what the Hardee County job is.
I don't necessarily have a definition, but I think we need to give it a little thought.
I think too, while you're doing that, this is something that the board should consider too. Some of Donald's idea, I don't think that's a bad idea, that Hardee County residents, if qualified, should be sought after first. And if it's a position that no one here is qualified to do, I understand that. If it's someone they could hire that could get some training at the local college or some tech place, technical thing that would qualify them to do whatever jobs needed, whether it's Continuum or anybody else that comes in here. I think that's something that we would consider to put in this as we're revising this agreement, that every opportunity should be given Hardee County residents, assuming their competency to fulfill those jobs.
Exactly. If they have two equally qualified applicants, they should go to the Hardee County
Amen.
residents.
Yeah.
Don't think anybody disagrees with that.
But the issue is who's going to determine their competency. It would have to be the person hiring, because
Sure.
if you're going to hire somebody, you choose the person that's most qualified. If that person happens to be a Hardee County resident, they should get the job.
Oh, I think so too. And anybody that's been in business here or been in charge of hiring, I mean, in years past, I've interviewed people that I've hired, two apparently equal qualified people, and you might have a personality conflict with one of them, or you might can tell real quick, this dog's not going to hunt. And you hire the one that you feel most comfortable with, barring other unforeseen things, and that's going to happen. And but I still think the intent could be, to Donald's point, that if at all possible, equal qualifications, that a Hardee County resident would be foremost considered.
So when you put that language in, would it be something to the effect that priority will or shall be given to Hardy County residents.
Qualified Hardy.
Qualified.
Qualified Hardy County residents. I mean, how far do we go in,
I think that's about as far as you go, because they have to determine what's qualified and what's not.
I have another question, please. The university portion, Tech River University, and what they did with that, shouldn't that be in this redraft to make sure that people know that it was removed and how it affects the number of jobs?
it's not removed from Tech River. We are just removing it from the performance-based criteria relative to Continuum. It is hoped and expected that Continuum will grow and occupy most of the building anyway. So there becomes a conflict. If we have an anticipation of this company growing and we're simultaneously putting competitive uses in the building, there's a bit of a timing issue. We're not going to cease the Tech River idea. We're just taking it away from a deliverable on this project so that they can continue to focus on the development of their web-based products.
So how many positions are there that are being written off temporarily, let's say?
None. I will say that in trying to verify employment, some of the things I have talked about with the auditors especially were maybe doing random head counts, actually randomly going in the building, doing a census, determining, first that the job is actually created there. We had not discussed, looking to determine exactly what the residency is relative to the job, but we can devise some ways to randomly do a census and a residency test over the period of time. The real proving of the jobs will be accomplished through a certification by the employer, Continuum, and verified through UCT6 and/or the W4 transmittals. And both of those documents clearly identify the employees of the company, and they give, quite a bit of information. The state doesn't have a parochial. The state just looks at creating jobs. Employ Florida. So they don't really have any rules relative to carving out individual counties relative to their criteria. There's no templates to follow in that respect.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on C? I've made 2 notes in my margin next to that. Basically said, make an attempt to come up with some sort of description or definition of what a Hardy County job is, and also grant the priority to Hardy County qualified Hardy County residents. Okay, moving on to letter D. By December 31st of this year, they're going to demonstrate at least $3 million in outside money in their operations, to be confirmed by Clifton Larson.